Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Time for another reading vlog project thing. I've really been enjoying doing these vlogs every now and then. They're more fun for me than like just sit down and like pull up like a bunch of books and talk about them. As you can tell from this video, we're gonna do a like tome vlog. I was thinking of doing either a tome vlog or binging like a YA series vlog in its entirety, but that seemed like a lot and I'm really tired, so we're gonna do a tome for a couple reasons. One, it's like a single book that I have to get through, but also I have quite a few thick girls on my shelf that I tend to avoid. Yeah, and I'm also in the mood for sci-fi, which is why I picked up, it's my dog, where's the book? Okay, I'm gonna pick up Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey, the first book in the Expanse series, which I think has already been completed recently. I'm not sure. I know there's a series, a film, like a television series. I know it's a space opera, but I don't really know much more details. I think for this particular vlog we're gonna do spoilers. In other vlogs where I read multiple books, I'm pretty vague on like on details to like not give away spoilers, but since I'm only reading one book for this vlog, I'll give out spoilers just so we have something to talk about. If you read at least this first book, I hope you enjoy this vlog. Talk to me in the comments about like anything that I bring up mid vlog, whatever. I'm technically in the middle of another book, but I'm gonna put it down just so I can get through this. I'm in the middle of the third book in the books of the Rexura, or the Rexura books by Martha Wells, which I love, but I'm gonna put it down so I'm gonna start reading this. And there's Pugsley. So I just finished reading about 100 pages. Actually, page 100 ends a chapter, so I thought this would be a perfect time for like a check-in. And while I was reading, I remembered that I think for my Sanderson vlog, where I tried my very first Sanderson, I also did like 100-page check-ins, and I think that's like the best for these kinds of like dedicated vlogs for like a single book. So going into this, I really didn't know what this was about, which for a couple reasons. One, because most people don't talk about like the details of the series when they like try to pitch it to like a new reader, which is fair, because if you've ever read like a long book like this, even if it's fantasy or sci-fi, like chances are there's gonna be like a multiple plot points that happen that you can't really like pin down like a good like overall summary. So that's fine, that makes sense. The part of the story that I do really like seems to be focused on this kind of tension between like people who live closer to Earth or to Mars, and then people who live on the belt, and maybe even outside of the belt. There seems to be some sort of like class war, and also even almost like a race war, since they don't really consider themselves like this, like the same type of person, and there does actually seem to be like physical differences between people who are born on the belt and people who are born like on Earth or Mars or the moon or whatever. I think that's pretty cool. I like that aspect of the story so far. I tend to really like gravitate towards like world building elements in my stories. I wrote down in one of my little stickies here, I really like how the authors introduce some aspects of this setting, this world. I know for some readers like little details about the background info is not as important, and they might rather not have them in the book. But for example, like when the authors wrote in that people on Mars almost have like a Texas twang, because a couple of different people settled on Mars, and one of the groups that settled on Mars were predominantly Texans, so now they have an accent, and I think that's like the funniest thing ever. Do we need to know that? No, but I think that little like throw in makes the reading experience better for me, because I love that little like throw in a little bit of a detail here. I love details, and it did take me like 100 pages to really like have a good understanding of what's going on and what like the inciting incidents of this book are, with the whole like whatever happened to that ship at the beginning, and then like the explosion of the Canterbury. I got that now. I see what the inciting incident is and where the pieces are starting to fall, so I don't mind it taking a while for the story to kind of, for me to like catch my breath and understand really what's going on. If the book is this long in total, then this is nothing for me to like get settled. I know for maybe other people it's not like as quickly let's get into the story like in the first like 10 pages, but for me it's fine. I can deal with it. I can push through a longer, slower start. personally. But I do think that's going to be like a problem for some people if they've never read this book, or if they've never read something like this before. I read fantasy, so this is okay for me. One thing that I'm kind of disappointed in, that I expected more from, and again, it's the first book in a series, it's only the first 100 pages, so I could eat crow, but I was hoping at this point to really at least connect more so with one character, or at least feel like these characters are different. The major POVs we have are Miller and Holden, and Miller seems to be some sort of like security investigator detective for this company, and Holden's obviously like one of the members who was part of the Canterbury that was exploded, was destroyed. They don't read too differently, and I guess maybe they do have some similarities in their character, but there's nothing super distinctive about either character. I'm so lucky that our chapters begin with like chapter 10 Miller, chapter 9 Holden, whatever, but they don't feel that different. And even like side characters, there's some details that were given that I'm like, okay, I can see how, you know, we can tell them apart. I think there's like 1 or 2 female side characters at this point that I you know, I know who they are and what they do, but like nothing super distinctive for characters, as for the characters that we've been introduced to. So it's kind of like, how long would that take? How long does that take? Because obviously don't want to compare other works. Each work is its own independent thing, but like I think I've seen some authors really like hit it out of the park with introducing a character right off the get-go and like feeling like you know who they are. I think 100 pages in, maybe we could at least start to really get a good feeling for the 2 main characters that we're reading from. I don't know, maybe I'm shooting for the stars here, but I don't know, I feel like they're kind of lackluster. But they could grow. Again, it's a very long series. It's a very long first book, so we'll see where they go from there. Anything else that I want to touch on? I do really like those types of stories where you have a character, or characters in this instance, like who are kind of stumbling into like a much bigger political type problem that they didn't really expect. I love those types of stories, and it seems like this is at least this first book is gonna be that. So I'm so excited. Again, I don't hate it or anything. I just am not super like in love with the first 100 pages, but it could get better. You never know. That's my first check-in. We'll check in on page 202 because that's where the next like 100 pages ends. So okay, so 2 updates. The last clips that you saw were taken at my local Goodwill, and I picked up like 2 books. I guess I can show you. I picked up If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. I feel like I've read Dumpling by Julie Murphy. I could be wrong, but I feel like I read it or at least listened to it. So I picked up her, I think this is an adult contemporary. It's just something light to have and read on me. Unless I really love it, I don't imagine I'll keep it after I read it, but who knows. I picked it up. I know it's like a somewhat newer release, which I don't typically see too much at my Goodwill. So, and then I have The Laughing Corpse. This is I'm hoping the second novel in the Anita Blake series by Laurel K. Hamilton. I listened to the first book on audio, and not that the audiobook wasn't like good quality, but just listening to an audio was like not the best for me. And if you've ever read like an urban paranormal series, the first books can be a little bit rough, and maybe reading it would be better experience for me. Kind of shocked at like the quality. It's like a really good, like barely, I don't even think it's been opened, but yeah, that's what I got at my Goodwill. I have a haul coming up eventually, maybe next month I'll do one, because I've gotten a few things since my last one. Not a lot, but I only do hauls when like I have like a substantial amount of books to talk about, but I don't get too much books at once. So, but I also got through the next 100 page section. Definitely much more has happened since then, and I've really enjoyed what I've read as well. Like I said before, I'm okay with like a slower start, considering this is like a thicker book. I don't mind that, but it definitely ramped up here, and we've got so much more happening. This like brewing war going on between like Mars and the belt. Our characters don't necessarily know everything as well, and so we don't know everything. I mentioned in my last clip where I talked about not feeling super connected to the characters. That's still kind of a thing. I do like Holden's voice a little bit more than Miller's, but I like Miller's story more. I feel like he's more into like the nitty grittiness of like Martian inner culture versus the belt culture and the tensions that arise in like everyday people, like when there's like a bigger catastrophe going on or like a war, how do the individual people react on a smaller scale. I find that more interesting to read personally, but obviously Holden's like in the thick of it. He's like meeting with more important people about what's going on here. His narrative, Holden's story, hasn't done much. He's mostly been like on the run for like a month. Everywhere he goes, like people just end up dying, and he's finally gotten to a place where it's like chill. He's met a very important person. He can catch his breath along with the few crewmates he has that have survived the initial attack on the Canterbury. So, and this author does this thing that's really jarring, but I feel like I guess it kind of makes sense for this type of story. There's not really like a big build up to like character deaths. They're kind of very like instant. It kind of like takes you out of it a little bit. That's pretty intense, but I guess I'm not so bothered by it here. I think that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think of anything major. If Miller and Holden were to ever meet, I'd like to see how that interaction goes, because they feel similar at moments. Like we're kind of just experiencing the story through them. There's not like huge amount of characters distinction between both of them. I don't know if we'll ever get that. I don't know if these authors have that strength. Some authors do characters really well and some are like just like okay. I don't know if these authors will create that with these characters. They haven't yet, but again, we still have a long way to go, so we'll see about that. But yeah, that's the update. I'll fill you in when I get to page what next. 302 would be like the next chunk I'll read from. At this point, my going rating, like if the book ended on a good note at this point, I'd probably say like a 3.5. So I have gotten to the like about 300 page mark. So in this last section, I think the thing that stands out to me the most is this development for Miller. I mentioned before, character-wise, not super strong. I don't feel like I got a lot from them. But Miller, I think, feels very real and like not a like extraordinary, out of this world, dramatic type character. He doesn't feel like, oh, this is like one of those characters specifically for this like big space opera type story. Doesn't mean I like him, because his thoughts and the way he's connected with Julie, the girl he's been trying to look for this entire book, it's odd. It's very off. I think it's meant to be weird and off-putting, the way he has emotionally connected to her in a way that's not just like, oh, like she's the case I'm working on, so I'm obviously like super invested in it. Like the way he thinks about her has gotten to a point where it's like a little like emotionally compromised, I guess. It made me uncomfortable, and I'm glad that there's a section in this right before the chapter ends where he's talking about his like humanity and how it's kind of shot to hell. I'm almost positive he's gonna die, unfortunately, that we finally got his character realized right before the end. I'm pretty sure he's gonna die, because that's what it feels like narratively that's gonna happen to him. I mean, there's still quite a bit of book left, and like there's a whole series after this, but I feel like we're nearing the end for Miller, which makes me sad, because I feel like I like understand him. I know his POV. I get it. I'm comfortable with it. So yeah, that kind of sucks. It makes me kind of sad. Holden still feels like missing something. I don't quite get him. Sorry if the angle changed, but again, I also like, part of me feels bad that Miller didn't get to meet Julie before he found her corpse, which was super disgusting, by the way. But like a part of me also knows that like he would have gotten nothing from that interaction, and Julie did not. I don't know, she's a character that we barely got to know, but she like really doesn't need some like weird cop like projecting onto her. Sorry, there's a thing in the way. Like I feel bad for his character, but I also know like he's his own piece of work. Holden is really just the character that we're experiencing the story from. I feel like I haven't gotten enough from him. I feel like he hasn't gotten his moment to shine. He's constantly confused. Him and like his crew is like constantly like, what's going on, like what's happening. This last 100 pages was a bit stronger in terms of the things that it was lacking earlier, particularly the character stuff. So we're still at around a 3.5, maybe a 4-star if we were judging based off of what I feel up until this point, that's kind of where I'm leaning. So yeah, I will come back when I gotten up to the next 100 or so pages. Page 400 ends a chapter, so around there. So I got to the next 100 or so pages. Page 400 ended on like a space battle, like actual like shooting lasers and shit. I'll be honest, I'm not the best judge at like actiony scenes. Even in fantasy, when people are like fighting with swords or whatever, I tend to kind of like glaze over that. Like I'm reading it, but I'm just like not taking anything in. I don't know what it is about me as a reader, but I don't take that in really well. So I can't tell you if this is like a good or a bad like space battle, just that it happened. And this whole section has a little bit more like movement towards it, like characters are going from A to B to C and like actually doing things as opposed to like sitting down and like talking. Miller's not dead, shockingly. I thought he was like toast. I thought he was gonna be space goo at this point. I don't know how long he will last. I still think he's gonna die soon. I don't know. If he doesn't, I'd be shocked, but maybe it'll be like a running like gag, like book 6, Miller's still alive, you know what I mean? He's still alive, good for him. I'm glad that he's gotten some more perspective since my last update. Like he was down low, like he was down bad. I did not expect much more from him. I'm really glad that he's like in this police mode that he calls it, where he's like very driven and like still very like able-bodied, even though he's like a little bit older than like the other cast of characters. He's still very like dedicated and has like a good head on his shoulders. And I do like this banter that he has now with Holden. I mentioned it before about Holden and Miller meeting, what that would be like, and like Miller seems to really like ground Holden. I don't remember how young Holden is supposed to be, but he feels young when he's like standing next to Miller, not like in a physical sense, but like the way they react to certain like instances. Holden's much more like impulsive, and there's this one section that I noted. I don't know if I can find it immediately, but it was really funny. This is when they were on, I think, that moon, Eros or something, and a bunch of like those sick zombies came out, and he literally just like repeats what comes out of his head. In his thoughts, he's like, where the hell did those zombies come from? And he literally like just repeats it out loud to Miller. I thought that's like funny to kind of like show what kind of character Holden has. Like slowly but surely we're starting to like or I feel like I'm starting to get a better grasp on Holden as a character. That's some progress. I would comfortably say that we're like a 4-star right now. Personally, it hasn't quite blown me away. I hadn't mentioned it, but like there's not a lot of female characters, and not that I like want to dog it for that. Like if an author can't write female characters well, then like don't try. I'm not gonna get mad at you for like writing in your comfort zone, but there have been a few, with obviously what's her face being dead, Julie. She doesn't really have much agency, right? Because she's only really, we only saw her like past instances, and Miller obviously has like this fixation on her, so she really doesn't have any agency. I can't like dog the authors for that either, but we do have Naomi, and I'm kind of starting to see her shine more. Typically that's what happens with books, like the main characters don't give what I want them to give, but at least the side characters are like that token side character, either like the funny one or like the ladies man or something. Naomi's also starting to show up a little bit more, which again, the side characters also weren't giving earlier, which I don't mind, because their side characters fine, whatever. But since the main characters weren't either for a time, it's about time for these characters to start shining, and I'm starting to get that a little bit more with Naomi and with Amos. Not much with Alex. Alex for some reason just feels like an extension of Amos. I don't know, but I would have liked just more character shining in general, character descriptions, character personality showing through. Anything character focused, I would have liked that more. So hopefully these last 200 or so pages like really knock it out of the park. I hope I made my points clear in this update. If not, goodbye. What just happened? I am on page 498. I am preparing myself for Miller to finally fucking die, because that's what the narrative's been telling me this entire time. He's not dead yet because the rock moved to the left. Do y'all know that like SpongeBob meme that's like, what if we just get Bikini Bottom and push it over there? That's literally what just happened. Well, how did it move? What's going on? Am I dumb? Am I not getting something here? Miller wants to die at this point, and not that I'm against Miller dying, I just don't particularly like how he's going about it. Like, I get like sacrificing yourself because like you have like no will to live. Find a will to live. Just because like you did something bad, I'm sorry, but like I don't like this holier than thou narrative that Miller is getting. And I'm glad that Naomi is like knocking some sense into Holden. Like, look, the guy that Miller shot in the face, like, he's literally like Lex Luthor times 1,000. Like, I don't know how, like, I don't like this self-pitying thing. I don't like how Miller is just like still hyper fixating on Julie, and he sees Julie all the time, and he's like, well, we're almost done, and it's like, girl, get a grip. I don't like it. I'm fine with people like sacrificing themselves because, you know, yeah, they want to, heroics, whatever, but he's just looking for like a good way to die, and that's just like super lame to me. I don't know, maybe I'm not sympathetic enough. Obviously I'm almost done. I have about 60 pages left. I am so close to the end, and I can wrap up this vlog and post it for y'all. Yeah, that was wild. I literally was like, huh? And some other things that I picked up. Now, don't get mad at me. Don't try to be like, oh my god, you're trying to cancel the book. I'm not trying to cancel the book. I still like the book, but there's just some comments that have been like made throughout the book. I didn't bring it up because it's like a little thing, you know. I'm still enjoying it, whatever, but there's some things that are said or written that I'm like, obviously this was written by like a guy or guys. I actually like don't know the authors who wrote this, but like I don't think they're women. Like, there was one where Holden is like talking to Amos, and he's just like, Amos is like, I see Naomi as like a sister, but if she had given me the chance, like, I would have sex with her. What kind of sisters do you have? Or like, there's also like they were talking about like a ship or something was rotating, and the comparison was like the ship rotated like a whore on display at a brothel. That's a really interesting comparison to make, but go off, I guess. Like, little comments like that, I'm like, weirdo. Little things like that. Not canceling the book, chill, relax. And throughout this book, I never like talked about it, but there's something so like doom and gloom about like knowing that like Mars and now Earth's like involved with the war, and obviously the OPA's like, you know, fucking around as well. There's something so ominous about like people dying, people are constantly under attack, there's like a war, and like some people are just like, what can I do? Because that feels a little too real at times. On my post-it note, I write down like notes. I don't like write down coherent sentences, so one of the notes I have is point and throw details, and I can only assume when I wrote that down is that I just like the cultures that have been created in this book. Essentially, I'm just like rehashing what I said earlier. I know other people might not care, but I love when authors create a community, a culture, a group of people, and they give them like distinct things that you might find in like an ethnography or something. I really appreciate that. Others people might not, but I see it throughout this book, and I really like it. But yeah, I don't have much more to say. I kind of just want to get back into it because I only have 60 pages left, and my next update will probably just be me wrapping up the video. I just need to know what the fuck happens. Depending on how this ends, I will continue with the series, but depending on how it ends, I might feel like discouraged to keep going. I don't know how it's gonna end. You'll hear my thoughts later. Also, before I end this clip, I still think about because I've been editing the videos, I still think about the comments that I made about like Miller and Holden, and obviously they have now grown into their own people. I get them now, so finally like I understand who they are. Took a little bit for some of them, but whatever. I just find it so interesting that I only really got to understand Holden more juxtaposed to Miller. Like, it wasn't the explosion of the Canterbury, it wasn't like Shed getting his head fucking exploded off, it wasn't him getting rejected by Naomi or whatever. It was just like him and his conversations with Miller that really helped me understand Holden. I think that just so, I don't know, I just like, I don't know why that I like that. I don't know, for me, I like that. I will update when I finish this and close off the vlog. So I finished Leviathan Wakes. What do I say about that ending? So Miller's dead. Shocking. I'm right, and I knew I was right. I'm always right, but again, there's a part of me that really does not vibe with Miller's entire connection with Julie, and I guess that's just like something I have to just like deal with it, because it just makes me incredibly uncomfortable. I don't know how else to put it, that this man has been so fixated on this girl. Like, it's crazy. I did like the twist at the end with like her being like the driving force of this thing that has been created on Arrows. I love that. I think that's so cool. Obviously we are still, there's been teased that after they flew into Venus, something survived. I'm very excited to see where that goes, if it goes anywhere. I'm not disappointed with Miller's character. I saw this coming for quite a while now, but it's just not a narrative that I think I enjoy, and that's like a personal choice. I don't love characters that are just like at the end of their rope and like I'm just ready to give up type of thing. I like characters like picking themselves up. I find that like more interesting to read, and because I could see it coming from like a mile away, like it was just like, okay, this guy's pretty depressed and he's like done with life and everything, time to cut it, like let's get Chop in here. I don't know, it's just like not great to read, like personally for me, like on an emotional level. I just don't like it, but it is a good book. Like I would say I think I'm gonna give this like a 4-star, and I do want to see where it comes, like where it goes next. I am interested to see where we go from here, how Holden and Naomi and Amos kind of play a part in what comes next, because they're obviously, you know, a bit more, have more compassion in general, but like I honestly see them saying like, I'm done with the OPA, like I did my part, I'm tired, I just want to live my life very chill. But we'll see. I don't know what's gonna come from here. Yeah, I'm really conflicted on the ending. I might have to read reviews, particularly on the Julie and Miller fixation. I don't know, I don't feel comfortable with that for some reason. I don't know what it is. I don't love it. And like I understand like a cop being like obsessive over this case that's like digging into his soul or whatever, but like I don't know, I kind of wanted someone to shake some sense in and be like, you need to let it go, it's about time. Overall, I would say really fun world that I have started, I have picked up. Hopefully it doesn't take me too long to get to the next book. The month of September is going to be dedicated to sequels and like continuing series. I don't know if this is a series that I want to jump back into quite quickly. I kind of want to sit with this a little bit, and in general I do like this idea. I don't typically read like author notes or excerpts that are like at the end of the book, but I kind of skim through them, and a big part of this book that these authors wanted to tackle was that time between humans not being in space until like that, you know, far future where humans are all over like the universe, that time between when they're expanding the expanse and the troubles that causes. And I think it was a really realistic look at like, just because this is the nearish farish future, corporations are still gonna be corporations, governments are still gonna be governments. It's just gonna slightly change depending on like the technology and like the specifics of it all. Some things like don't change. I like that aspect, and other than obviously the issues that I have with like characters, I did really enjoy this genuinely. I hope you liked this vlog. I hope you had a good time experiencing Leviathan Wakes with me. I don't think I have any like video or anything up talking about all like the tomes that I have on my shelves. I do have a couple of them, but if there are any books that you think deserve like a dedicated vlog to, I'd like to hear anything you have to say down below in the comments. I will also link my social medias down below, as well as some far more important links. Feel free to like, dislike, comment, or subscribe, or do neither. Talk cool with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.